Good evening, everyone. I'm Todd McIntyre, Community Relations Manager with CalTrain, and I'm here tonight with Raphael Bolin. Please stand for us, Raphael. Maybe wave, say hello. He's the project manager for the San Bruno Grade Separation Project, and we have the pleasure tonight of having a couple people from the city of San Bruno here, Clara Fabry and Bruce Shuchuk. Thank you, council member, for coming tonight. And we also have from County Supervisor's Office, Dave Pine, Mr. Matt Jacobs. So we wanted to take this opportunity tonight to just give you an update and let you know where we are with the project and sort of what's coming up in the next 6 or so months. There's going to be a little bit of a gear up in activity. And so we thank you very much for coming out tonight. So we'll give you a quick overview of the project for those who may not have attended our previous community meetings here, and talk a little bit about the schedule thus far and the progress that's been made. Like I said, the next 6 months coming up, Raphael will take that and talk a little bit about safety around the project and at the work site. And then we'll take some questions, and I'll talk about the various ways to contact us in case you have follow-up questions later on, or even want to get on our email list, which is a new option that we have. So real quickly, just wanted to bring up a little bit of an aerial here and talk about what's going on. The construction is being staged, which means the equipment and some of the stockpiles of the excavated dirt material are being stored at the parking lot where it used to be San Bruno lumber. It's at the corner of San Bruno and San Mateo Avenues. The stripe portion there along Huntington shows that there is no longer a right turn. There used to be a right turn there, and in the picture it was still depicted. So I just want to make sure that there's no right turn depicted there. There will be a cul-de-sac along First Ave. There's a small yellow line up there in the top right-hand corner. So the traffic will no longer be able to go through First Avenue up to San Bruno once the project is completed. I think Raphael can talk a little bit more about an anticipated timeline for that to be cul-de-saced. Just to talk a little bit about the project goals, the main thing is about enhancing safety for pedestrians and for motorists as the train is coming through. We run approximately 5 trains per peak hour in each direction, a total of 86 trains per day in our current schedule, so that's a lot of trains. And we all know that if we can remove the potential for conflicts with pedestrians and motorists, that's best for everyone. It also will cut down ultimately on the amount of horn noise because by federal requirements, we have to blow our horns a quarter mile before every single crossing. It's to improve access to this school here, Bel Air and Lions Field Park, reduce overall congestion that results from gate downtime as the trains go through, and to improve emergency response times so that emergency response vehicles are not held up by train traffic, and to ultimately support the grand visions of San Bruno with respect to its revitalization of the downtown area. So just to talk about the grade separations, where we will actually be raising the tracks above, we have 3 where specifically are streets where autos go through, and this does help pedestrians as well. There will be sidewalks and other ways to access as pedestrians. This is at San Bruno Avenue, San Mateo Avenue, and Angus Avenue. And then we will have pedestrian only, which bicycles will be able to use too. I believe that's a question that we had gotten at a previous meeting, at Sylvan Avenue, the location of the new station, and at Euclid. To talk about a few of the station amenities, I know that we had gone through a number of design discussions with the Citizens Advisory Committee for a few years, and out of that, we talked about nice texture to the walls of the grade separation structure to break up the linear nature of it or the horizontal nature of it, as well as some potentially recycled materials and things for the benches and trash receptacles, Posey Park will also be reconstructed. There will be a water feature with ADA access and disabled ramp to get up to the train platforms. There will be a station elevator at the location of the new station, which will be at San Bruno and San Mateo Avenues, where we are currently staging the construction. And there will be a total of approximately 191 parking spaces and lots of trees once the construction is complete. So there will be a lot more landscaping. I know a lot of folks were concerned that we had to pull trees out in order to do the construction, but because of the proximity to the tracks and the need for so much on-track work, and we'll talk about what some of that track work is a little bit later, we had to take those trees out, and so we will do replantings and plant actually more, I believe about 15 more than were there before. Okay. Talk a little bit about the schedule. So we started the project, we had a kickoff event, I believe it was November 18th, 2010, here in the city of San Bruno. We anticipate that the project will be complete in the summer of 2013. And just to go through some of the big things that have happened thus far, there's a big wall that had to be constructed where the I-380 overpass is, and some of the tracks shifted to what will be the final alignment after the elevated structure is completed. We've also been replacing the sanitary sewer throughout First Avenue, along, I think, parts of Huntington, San Bruno Avenue as well. The temporary station, began construction on that. We anticipate that it'll be done in about a month or so. That's going to be just slightly south of where the current station is. Okay, and what that's going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to then shift the tracks over to the east on what is called a shoe fly, and begin to run the trains on that temporarily while the elevated structure is being constructed. Some train signal improvements have been going on. They will be going on for quite some time. Basically, we have to dig some trenches and improve a lot of the utilities and the signal infrastructure for the trains so that it communicates well. We maintain our train priority when they come through, or excuse me, traffic signal preemption. So when the trains come through and the gates come down and the lights actually go red, and all that coordination continues. And the shoe fly construction. So some of that has already begun, but the trains won't actually start to run on that until later on this year. And so upcoming activities, and Raphael will go through this in a little bit more detail, include the train shifting to the shoe fly tracks, which will actually cause us to have to close a few streets for up to 1 week, and we'll talk exactly what those details are. Pile driving, which will happen only during the daytime per agreement with the city. And then some deep excavation in order to put those piles in and lay the foundation for this big structure, and then the actual construction of the structure itself. So if Raphael will come up and talk a little bit about the detail of the next 6 months.
Sure, thanks, Todd. Forward and forward. Okay, so I'm going to walk us through the next 6 months and the major construction activities that we'll see out there, and then I'll just kind of a little bit on a faster pace walk through the remainder of the project through completion. So the first main thing that we're going to see out there, which Todd alluded to, is a shoe fly construction. Now, shoe fly is basically a temporary rail bypass. So what you're going to see is 2 new tracks immediately adjacent to the existing track. So coming out closer to First Avenue to the east of the existing CalTrain tracks. What that allows us to do is actually to build the grade separation and still keep trains running. So what are the effects of that? Well, those people living on First Avenue in particular are going to see that the trains are going to be approximately 25 feet closer than they currently are. So here's a slide of the shoe fly. So what you can see up at the bottom left-hand corner, well, San Bruno Avenue is running through the center, and so 101 would be at the top of the slide, and north is on the bottom left-hand corner. So what you're seeing on this slide is the, sorry about that. What you're seeing is the shoe fly as it's completed. However, in order to get the shoe fly completed, what you can see from this is that we'll actually have to cross all 3 crossings over live traffic. So that takes me to the next major activity that you'll see within the next 6 months. This is the street closures, it's actually the largest street closure that we're going to have to do for this project. And the good news is it's the last full street closures that we'll have to do for the project. Now, in order to do this, remember, we're trying to get a shoe fly in across all 3 crossings simultaneously. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to do a phased closing of San Bruno, San Mateo, and Angus Avenues. So what that means is Friday night, all 3 crossings will be closed to the public. The priority is San Bruno, because it's the busiest street and the most vehicular traffic. So the priority is to get emergency vehicle access open on San Bruno by the next morning, okay? The night of Sunday, so 4 a.m. Sunday then, San Bruno will be open to regular vehicles. The following Monday morning at 4 a.m., San Mateo will then be open, which leaves Angus, which will actually remain closed for another few days till Friday, again, 4 a.m. in the morning when that opens. So what we're doing is we're just prioritizing the major streets followed by the less major. Another big activity that you guys are going to see and have already begun to see is excavation of material. So that's going to take 2 forms. Most of the soil is going to get hauled off directly from the right-of-way, put onto trucks, taken up El Camino onto the freeway and off the project site. Some of the soil we have to test. And in order to do that, what we'll do is we'll take it to the old lumber yard. We'll store it in these stockpiles, which you can see some of them today, which are, you can see them, they're all covered in visqueen and fiber rolls, et cetera. And so what we'll do is we'll haul it to the lumber yard, we'll test them, and then once those have been tested, then they will be hauled off as well. And then the next major activity, which everybody will, I'm sure, notice, will be pile driving. And the pile driving has to occur again at all 3 crossings. So it'll occur at one at a time. We'll start at San Bruno. There are 3 groups of piles at San Bruno, 3 groups at San Mateo, and only 2 at Angus. So what will happen is they'll set up a K-rail enclosure. They'll set up the rig. It's a very large pile driving rig. It'll come in that morning and begin pile driving operations. Our goal is to get 2 piles driven within 1 hour window in between trains. And then that will continue during daylight hours until 6 p.m. And roughly speaking, you're looking at approximately 2 months of this operation in a kind of rolling closure. So not 2 months, obviously, at one location. And so now I'm jumping ahead to beyond the next 6-month threshold. But what you're now seeing in this slide is you can see one of the bypasses that you're going to see at San Bruno, which is when we're doing the work for the bridges, there will be periods of time where San Bruno will have to sort of bypass around. I call it a donut, but it'll be kind of a bypass to the right and the left of existing San Bruno. You can also see on the bottom left-hand corner the beginning of a pedestrian underpass under construction, as well as the MSC wall itself. So this is obviously the wall that's going to hold up the grade SEP in the final configuration. The next slide just shows a little bit more progress. You see the roads lowered, trains are still running on the shoe fly at this time, and the bridges are continuing to be constructed. On this slide, you can see the bridges, the actual steel is going to be brought in and assembled on site. And then here are just some renderings of the completed project. So this is just, again, same visual of the completed project, showing both platforms, showing the brand new station amenities at the old lumber yard, and showing the new Posey Park up on the top right-hand corner. And this is a conceptual drawing we did of what a potential 4-track grade SEP would look like. So what it would effectively do is the 2 additional tracks, if you will, would come to the east. So where the shoe fly is going to be constructed is where you would see those 2 tracks, which is why we have to stage the project this way. We have to keep rail traffic going at all times, and so we staged it in this manner. So again, what you're seeing is northbound, southbound platform there. This is just a rendering we did at the platform level to give you guys sort of an artist's interpretation of what it may look like from that level. Same view, but slightly darker for some reason. And then just, I really wanted to reiterate just the commitment that CalTrain has made to the city and to all the stakeholders that safety is really our #1 priority out here. We're doing this grade separation fundamentally because of safety. And so we want to just take safety very carefully as we're doing the construction. And just one thing I want to remind everybody here, I know you guys all know this, but part of keeping a safe job site is that people who are not authorized to be out there need to stay out of the areas that are cordoned off. And they'll be very clear. They'll have signs, they'll have fencing, they'll have K-rail. But it is very important that if you're not safety trained, if you do not have the proper safety equipment, hard hat, et cetera, that you do not enter the work site. It's just for everybody's protection. The same is going to go for motorists as you're going through flagged zones, et cetera. We all know it can be challenging when you've got flaggers, what have you, but we're just going to ask for everybody's patience going through this, because for everybody's safety, we need to obey the flaggers, we need to obey instructions as given. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we like to keep it short and sweet, but I want to make sure that you know that there are several ways to contact us. So we are here to answer questions about the project, about any concerns, impacts that you may have with respect to the project, but we also have a few different ways to contact us. Mainly, we have a construction information line, and we have a dedicated San Bruno grade separation email address that is monitored daily. We also just wanted to let everyone know that if you have questions about service, so as some of the construction is going on out here, we will have notices out for customers letting them know that, let's say, trains will run on the northbound tracks this weekend, or all trains will run on the southbound tracks this weekend. But if you have additional questions about service, please contact our customer service department, because they are also open on weekends, and they can answer most questions about service immediately for you, okay? Additionally, you can mail us or email us or find us on the web at www.caltrain.com. One of the things that we have just done is to create a subscription option. So if you go to our webpage, on the front page, you can click subscribe, and it'll take you to a page where you have several choices. Those choices now include the San Bruno grade separation. You can also click on board meetings and a few other things if you're interested in those as well. And so anytime there's an update, and we do a weekly update to the San Bruno grade separation page, just to say what construction activities are coming up in the next week, it will actually notify you by email. And then you can just click on that link and go straight to the page to see what's going on. Okay, that also happens if we put new documents, like we put the presentation that's here up on the page, and we also have the project fact sheet, which copies are on the front table there on that page as well. Okay, and we'll open it up for questions at this time. I think we have another microphone there. Just raise your hand.
So my name is Santha Takahashi. We live on Carlton.
Yes.
So we missed the last meeting, but we
Okay.
were at the initial meeting that you guys had. And I just have some kind of follow-up questions. So as I understand it, the shoe fly will be at the end of Cupid's Row, basically?
Yes.
And that'll be the parking lot on our side, and then the train tracks and things will be closer to First Avenue.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you said that a horn right now is blown a quarter mile away from the station. So could you compare where it's blown now in both directions versus where it will be blown? Because
So-
we hear it very clearly from our house.
So the horns, and let me just clarify, the horns have to be blown by federal regulations a quarter mile before each crossing. Okay. And horn use is at the discretion, to some extent, of the engineer. And so if they see people on the platform, often they will blow coming through the station. Okay. If there's no one on the platform, a lot of times they may not. If they're pulling up to the platform, they may blow a couple times. If they're stopping and they have a bell that typically dings to let people know that the train is approaching. But it really is important. I mean, the horn is a safety device. Just want to let everybody know that. You'd be surprised how quiet the trains are as they're approaching you at a crossing or at the platform. And so it is important that they blow the horns.
Okay, so the rest of that is
Yes.
when the new station happens, where are they going to be blowing their horns?
It would just be likely at the platform.
Okay, because there are technically no
No
crossings.
more crossings, that's
Got
correct.
it. Okay, thank you. Then the other question I had is, when we were back here in November, or whenever it was, initially partial of funding for this was coming from the high-speed rail, as well as the added distance across the rails, like it was going to be 4 things. It looks like that has not changed, but I don't hear very positive things about high-speed rail coming through here anymore. So one question, where's the money coming from? Is it still from high-speed rail? And two, if it is, and high-speed rail is not coming through here, why is this thing going to be so massive?
Okay, so it's a two-part question. Let me talk about the money first. So there are a couple of infrastructure propositions. The one that we're getting money from is, I believe it's Prop 1B. And that is some of the state matching money. The other is grade separation specific money from the state. But most of the money is coming from San Mateo County Transportation Authority. I believe it's about 90 to 100 million of the 147 million total construction costs. Okay, so most of the money is coming from local funds. Now, to talk about high-speed rail, we've also heard some things that aren't too savory, right? What we have built into this project is the possibility for them to come in as we're finishing up and continue the elevated structure and expand it to 4 tracks. Now, that all still would be within our right-of-way, okay? So we don't have to go out into anyone's home or anything like that. It's still within our right-of-way. But we understand that that is a very uncertain future, and we have the option, if it looks like that's not going to happen, to go ahead and exercise with the contractor and say, we're going to go ahead and button this up as a 2-track structure, and our project is done. Okay? So what we've shown here is that the option is still available if high-speed rail is going to come through. It'd still be, no. Ours will remain within just wide enough for the 2 tracks. Yes. Yes. That's correct. So the final alignment of the tracks will be on the western side of our right-of-way, and so right now the shoe fly tracks, the temporary tracks, are being constructed on the east side, closer to the residences on First Ave. So as the councilman mentioned, that would be more of a relief from those on the First Ave side. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There you go.
I live on 2nd Avenue. And the thing that I'm very concerned about is the underpass at 2nd and Angus. That's going to be going under the tracks, but I'm also concerned about any place where it's going to go under the tracks, the safety of people who would be walking through there. Are you going to have, say, a camera? So if somebody gets mugged in there, there's going to be a picture of that. The people that it happens to and how it happens. I think that would be an extremely valuable, important, and really just ought to be at every one of those underpasses for the people. And that's what I want to speak to tonight.
Right, we have the station. We don't have it at the Angus one. Okay, so I can probably answer that. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's very important. Anytime you have a structure that goes through, in a closed space like that, what you don't want is a sort of confined space where somebody can be in some way bothered or attacked or what have you. So there will be CCTV, there will be video cameras throughout the platform level and the 2 crossings at the station. So the pedestrian crossings at the 2 at basically the former lumberyard will both have cameras attached to them. Also, we're doing obviously a lot of things with lighting as well as planting, et cetera, to just leave that as open as possible. So just visually, it's not one of these where you're going down 17 steps and you can't see where you're going until you get there. That is definitely something that we looked at as a concern because we're aware that's something that the residents would have to live with for a long time. I don't have it in front of me. I believe they are 20 feet by 18, as I recall. 18 and a half perhaps. So they are quite wide structures. They're not, it's not a little narrow culvert. And there is quite a bit of lighting provided as well. And we've landscaped around it in such a manner that you don't have anything.
Not a camera, not just lights, but a camera, something so that.
She was specifically asking about the camera.
Right,
That may not have been
right. Right, and like I said, we will have, at the station, we will have cameras on the underpasses at the station.
Yeah, not only at Angus, but anywhere. Cameras not only at Angus, but anywhere down the way, that you've got people walking underground or in areas that are dark.
Right.
Yeah, you want cameras in case a criminal comes through there and does
Really,
something
it's kind of
wrong for
exceeding
them.
it, quite frankly. Right, and that is a very good question. So yeah, we will have the parking area, we will have the platform itself, and the 2 underpasses at the station will be covered with cameras. So at all times, you'll be visible. Unfortunately, we're not able to extend that over the whole length of the grade separation.
Talking about daytime, nighttime?
Daytime, nighttime, all the time. That's correct.
So that is at Angus, at San Mateo Ave, and at San Bruno Ave?
No, that is at the 2 pad underpasses at San Bruno and the platform and parking lot accessories adjacent to that.
And that the placement of those will be finalized with the police department, who are coordinating with the city police
Okay.
department.
Thank you. Oh, and I'd just like to mention that we're finalizing the placement of them with the police department. That's one of the remaining items. The city just reminded me that we have to coordinate with the city to get the police's input on the final location of those cameras.
If I could just butt in, yeah.
Mhm.
So the answer to the question is that there are not plans to have cameras at the pedestrian undercrossings.
There are cameras at 2 of the pedestrian underpasses. There are not cameras at all 3 of the pedestrian underpasses, yes.
So which one does not have cameras?
Angus.
Angus, okay. So,
And again, the limit on that is because.
well, that's a good question, why not? And that will be something that we'll discuss, that we'll deal with police and with CalTrain and with the city, okay?
Okay.
So please don't think that we're not gonna deal with it, okay? Okay. I just wanted, I'm Ken Ibarra with the city council, and I've been dealing with grade separation with Mayor
Mhm.
Ruane for the last 8-9 years. And I don't know if Councilman Rico Medino's been introduced, but I just want to say, I have questions about the pile driving. I mean, we're dealing here tonight about what's coming up and what the residents are to expect during the construction process.
Mhm.
And I can appreciate what the concerns are with the finished product, but I'm a little confused. I'd like you to elaborate a little more on the pile driving. These residents have gone through a BART construction,
Mhm.
which there was pile driving and sheet piling.
Mhm.
So there was a whole series of disruption, both in audio, what they heard, what they felt, and what they saw. And so let's not beat around the bush about pile driving. I mean, when you say that 2 piles per hour, 3 sets of piles, basically they're going to hear pounding from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. for how long?
For anywhere from 6 weeks to 2 months.
Okay. And will there be any relief during that time?
In so much as you won't be at one location for that whole time. So if you, for instance, happen to live closer to Angus, there will be relief for 2/3 of that time, right? Because the rest of the time will be
Right,
San Mateo,
okay.
San Bruno. So, I mean, beyond that, I mean, no. I mean,
Okay. Yeah, all right, everyone's clear on that? That there is, you know what pile driving is. You know what that sounds like. It's just, right. And then I'm just gonna put a pitch out that, I mean, you did explain that you have you know, you've got the numbers, phone numbers out there. I'm your city representative. I'm going to go out on the limb. I don't know if Councilman Rico wants to do it, but if you don't want to deal with that, you take my number. You call me, and I'll give you my number, whatever. Because not everybody is going to be going on cable and looking at what's going on and, you know, what's coming up. And if you really want to know whatever, it's going to be our job, at least while I'm on the council, to help you out. This is something that's going to, I mean, there's no way around it. It's going to be a pain in the ass, if it hasn't already been for some of you residents. So, oh, I'm over Bart. But if there's anything that I can do, or if the city can do, I don't want you to feel that you're, you know, because, I mean, CalTrain is doing what they can. I believe you're doing what you can and everything, but there's going to be times where you're going to get frustrated, and if it feels better to call your city representative, then by all means, you know, do that and let it out on me or the mayor or Rico. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I also just want to let you know that we do take all the concerns, complaints, inquiries about what's going on seriously. I mean, it could be as small as backup beepers, or someone's alarm is going off, or it's, you know, that there's pounding going on because of the equipment that's on the track and it's loud. So we do listen, we do get back, and we have a few people that are tasked just with making sure to monitor the different calls and emails that come in with respect to this project. So please understand that we do take them seriously and we are responsive. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, right now the tracks are level with the street. So I understand the piles, I guess the reason for the piles is to raise the track.
Yes.
So are you going to lower the road also, dig under the track and raise at the same time the track, or?
Yes. You want to talk about the
How much
sequence?
I'm just kind of curious, how much can you raise the track? Is it actually a ramp, or?
It's about, I believe, our standard, and it's typically limited by phrase about 1% per 100 feet, 1.25% per mile, or 100 feet. Yeah, 1.25%, excuse me. So we can't go up really fast.
Right.
Yes, and we have to come back down before the 380 overpass too. So there's a clearance issue up there.
So how much do you dig, like San Bruno Avenue, for example? Would that be?
How deep will that be,
Lower?
Raphael?
The deepest we can go is approximately 4.5 feet. And the reason we can't go any deeper than that is BART. So BART is running right on Huntington. And so we can go down, but we've got to come right back up over it. Otherwise, we'll be getting calls from Oakland. So that's what's limiting on going down. And then going up, like Todd said, there's two constraints. The most obvious one is 380. Obviously, we got to get back under 380. We've got to maintain minimum clearance under 380. And then the other thing is, of course, trains being trains, there's a limit on how quick we can go up and down. So we're already at the max at 1.25 coming up. So we're going up as quick as we can. We're coming down as quick as we can, but we're kind of constrained on all sides.
Thank you. Other questions? Right here.
Where we at? Okey dokey. There you go.
Speak loud enough. You have on here,
Yes.
reduce automobile congestion and emissions.
Yes.
How do you get to that?
Okay.
I'd like to get it on record
Yes.
that isn't true.
Okay. Well, right now, like I said, during the peak hours, we have as many as 5 trains per hour per direction going, and that's a lot of gate downtime. And what that does is that stops traffic, and so you have more idling and you have more congestion and traffic backup as a result. So when we actually take those gates away, because now the trains are running over the streets, the cars are free to go through, only limited by the traffic signals rather than being stopped by the train infrastructure. And that actually does reduce congestion and emissions.
The reason I'm asking that is because I live on Euclid,
Okay?
block north of San Bruno Avenue.
Yes.
And all the cars, they want to take a shortcut. So they come up to Euclid Avenue to get to El Camino and then back on 101. Now, I see more cars coming.
Okay.
And in 1986, a traffic study had been done,
Yes.
and they recorded, I think it was 210 cars an hour on Euclid.
Okay.
So you can see.
Yes, and so what we're not claiming by this project to either mitigate or counteract the effect of population growth and the number of cars that are associated with that.
Whatever
However,
you claim, you better sign it.
However, it does help that more cars can go through on San Bruno to and from the freeway and not be inhibited
Not on
by the
Euclid.
train passages. And what we typically find, and I've worked in transportation a long time, what you typically find is when you have main thoroughfares open up and less congestion on them, you get a little bit of a reduction in cut-through traffic. You're always going to have somebody that thinks they can beat it, right? But it does tend to go down.
I don't believe all that.
Okay.
Then the other thing is the area where it's a pedestrian crossing.
Yes.
Is that going to be made for motorcycles?
No, non-motorized
It's
vehicles.
just pedestrians.
Yes, pedestrians, bicycles, you can take.
And that means we're going to get more people on our street. And I don't
Well-
want them.
Well, I'm not sure that it necessarily will entice more people to cross the tracks. However, what we're doing is making it safer for those that do.
And although I know about trains
Yes.
and the noise they make,
Mhm.
you can hear these trains already.
That's
And then
correct.
if the speed rail comes along,
Mhm.
God almighty, I don't know what's going to happen to San Bruno.
Well,
Because everything that happens comes through San Bruno.
well,
And one good point is like Freeway 380,
that's true.
which they wanted to take 500 homes away. And we had a fight in order to have that changed. And then CalTrain came along and changed it.
Well, you don't have to fight with us.
So I know
on the
all
grade
that
separation.
stuff.
I understand. And just so you know, the train equipment, the diesel equipment that we have right now, the locomotives that haul the trailer cars, is about the heaviest, lowest performance equipment that we would have anywhere into the future. So if we are able to electrify our CalTrain system, they're higher performance, lighter vehicles. If high-speed rail is to come through, they're higher performance, lighter vehicles than the trains we run today. So you'll actually probably hear less of the rumbling from either one of those than you hear today. And I understand that there are also some construction methods that are being used to try and reduce some of the vibration as well along the grade separation.
I guess you knew that there was a time we had no signs, no traffic signs at the grade separation.
I do. Can't do that anymore. State won't let us.
And this one time,
Yeah.
this lady was killed. Train hitting the car that she had left her little child in there.
Oh.
And the train finally stopped behind Artichoke Joe, which at that time was just a little building. So then we were fighting or working hard to get traffic lights
Yes.
on there. And it took a long, long time. Then this one day, this one person from the council, it wasn't him, but this other one saw me way across, and he said, we had a budget meeting, $100,000, and it's not been pointed for anything.
Yeah.
And I'm not, unless they have traffic lights. Okay, I will bring it up again. And so finally, we got the traffic lights.
Yes.
And believe me, that was a delight.
Well, we hope to bring another delight through additional safety measures
I'd
that
like
will
to
help
see your
us
name
to
on it.
hopefully avoid more tragic situations, which we are very familiar with, okay? So that's the purpose for this project. So I think the gentleman next to you has a
Yeah.
question.
As I told you before, I know about trains.
I know. Thank you, ma'am.
Is the electrification contingent on the high-speed rail, or is that a separate proposal?
It's a completely separate scope. Electrification is a CalTrain project to electrify or put power stations and overhead wires on our tracks that we currently have today. High-speed rail is proposing to utilize our right-of-way, that means the property that we own, but they potentially would have to widen the right-of-way to accommodate more tracks. And because of the higher speeds that they want to run, they would actually have to do grade separations along the whole peninsula. Now, there are a lot of different moving pieces with high-speed rail and what that potentially is. Nevertheless, I just want to be clear that our electrification project, though we do believe it has some utility for a future high-speed rail project, and so we hope to access the funding or part of the funding from the high-speed rail program. It is a separate project. Okay? Thank you.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
Are you still going to drive the piles for high-speed rail?
We are going to still put some of the understructure, yes.
Okay. And has a detour route been established for when you close the roads?
That is actually currently being worked out with the city, and we will make sure that notice goes out and that detour route is known.
Okay. And that would be on the website?
Yes, we'll
Most
put that
likely?
up there as well.
Okay. And the last one is...
I'm sorry? Yes, we'll send out mailers. We will have electronic message signs up, and we'll have it on the website as well.
Okay. The last one is, can recycle bins be included on the platforms along with trash bins?
I think we can do that. Let me, we'll have to look into that. We'll look at our station standards and get back to you.
Hi, my name is Christopher. I had a few questions about the Posey Park.
Yes.
You guys just took out about 5 big redwood trees out of there, and you said you were going to replace trees after you've taken them out. According to this picture, it looks like it's almost all concrete with 2 trees. And you said you're going to put a waterwork thing in there. What is that, a fountain or a drinking fountain, or?
It's not a drinking fountain. It is I believe it's sort of a cascading staircase type water feature. And we do apologize that the renderings that we had available to us to try to show what the amenities would be were not quite as illustrative as we would have liked them to be, but there will be more trees than what is shown there. And there will be trees all around and other plantings, sort of low ground cover plantings as well on the various sides of the structure itself.
Okay, and the platforms that you're putting in, I just want to understand, they're going to be built where there'll be enough room if the high speed does come through, that they'll use the same thing without having to come in and drive more pile drivers in?
They would still have to do some. They would still have to widen the structure because the structure.
Why don't they do it now while you're out there doing it? I mean, make it wide enough for
they don't have a project that's approved. Okay, so the project, the high-speed rail project was approved, funding for high-speed rail was approved by the voters, all right? But they have to go through an environmental review process for the actual project, and that has to be approved before they can move forward with any construction or to allocate any money for construction. So they can't do anything right now, okay?
So this may not be the end of it for us.
May not.
Yeah.
But we also don't know what's going to end up happening with high-speed rail. We don't. There may be an initial segment that comes through on the current infrastructure for 5-10 years. I don't know. We have no idea right now. We can't answer that. All we can do is move forward with the project that we have to improve the safety here in the city. And if they come through in time, then we can let them go ahead and piggyback onto ours to reduce the time impact on the city residents. If they don't, then we just have to go ahead and finish our project, get out of your hair, and make sure that our trains continue to run.
Thank you. And the rail station that's out here is going to be our temporary until the new one is put in?
The one that's out there now, it's actually going to shift a little south. So just
they're gonna
south
move
of
it.
that is going to be temporary, the temporary station. Okay, and then the permanent station, once the whole structure is complete, is going to move to the northwestern corner there at San Bruno and San Mateo.
Right.
Okay.
So this one here is going to move south.
Yes.
So that's going to impact people down,
Yes.
more pile driving for that?
No, no, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just, when is it going to move, the station, the temporary station? It's going to stay here for how long and then move south?
About another month and a half? Month over there?
Construction's begun, as you can probably see out there. The wood retaining wall that you see is the beginning of that temp station. And so that construction will take about another month, month and a half. And the second question, I guess, was how long will that be, the temp station?
Well, is there going to be access to walk to that station? I
Yes.
mean, from here, it's going to go that way, correct?
Yeah, so a couple things will change at the existing station. The parking lot will also shift. There's a little drop-off area, kiss and ride, and a drop-off for disabled individuals. And then the parking lot will move to the south as well. So you won't be using the same you'll be using some of the existing parking lot, but not the northern part of the parking lot. So everything kind of shifts to the south, if that makes sense.
So for how far down is it going to move
It
south?
moves 700 feet.
Oh, just 700 feet. Okay, so it's just basically in the same neighborhood, just a few feet down, right?
Well, it'll be up by the BART, where the BART daylights, that structure, it'll be adjacent to that area.
So people can walk that way. You're going to have walkways to
Yeah, so there'll
get
be a
there.
fenced-off area, so you don't walk over the BART, obviously, that'll lead you to either side, depending which way you're coming to the
And
station.
when it's going to run on one track only, you'll notify the people which side they should be on to go north or south, correct?
Yeah, and in addition to that, what we do is, we've actually done a little bit of that over the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you've noticed, but what we do is we have ambassadors out there. So we'll actually physically have a person out there who's there to just sort of point to people. I mean, we have signage, but we also have people saying, you know, this platform, that platform.
Okay. I'm just concerned for her because she takes the train and she's going to need to know where to go.
Sure, no, absolutely.
Okay, thank
No, yeah, we do have people out there just so it's very clear. I mean, we've got signage and everything else, and we'll post it, but just in case somebody doesn't quite get to it for whatever reason, we do have people out there.
And there's lights and everything out there, 700 feet back, right? You're going to have lights at nighttime for people and everything,
Yes,
right?
we will, absolutely. Yeah, even though we call it a temporary station, I mean, we are aware that it'll be used for some time, so we are going to treat it like it was a CalTrain station.
Okay.
So it'll have lights, it'll have furniture, it'll have
okay.
all the things you're seeing at the at-grade platform. Really, the only difference is that the platform itself won't be concrete, it'll be a little bit more temporary. You'll see some asphalt with a little wooden wall that you see out there now.
Okay, and that's in about a month and a half, right?
Correct. Well, it'll be open in about a month and a half. What you see, construction's begun already.
So the trains are just going to stop back there instead of coming up this far, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the same thing, it just stops a little bit earlier.
Okay.
Or later, depending if you're going south.
And I just want to touch on the single tracking. Typically, that's only going to happen sort of later at night or on the weekends. It's not going to happen throughout most of our commute day.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
There you go, sir.
And can you tell us anything more about the high-speed rail that you haven't said yet? And I wanted to reiterate to that young lady over there that is concerned about the noise. I want to give you confidence that it's going to go by so fast you won't have time to hear it, because it won't likely stop here. It'll stop in San Francisco, and no, you won't. It'll definitely be less noise than what the train is doing now.
Yeah, that's about the best I can say. I mean, I haven't personally ridden or been on a high-speed train yet, but the people that I know that have say that they go by you and you almost don't hear them. I mean, so that's the best I can answer that. Yes, sir.
Hi there. My name's Jason. I have a question about the overall intersection of San
Yes.
Bruno Avenue and San Mateo Avenue.
Okay.
Along the where the new station is that street going to widen at all? Because right now it's very
Which
tight.
one is it? San
San
Bruno or San
Mateo
Mateo?
Avenue.
San Mateo?
Yeah.
Yes. By how much?
So both, the answer is both widen. So San Bruno does widen. There's a dedicated turn lane on San Bruno in the final condition. It doesn't have one now, as you know. And that'll prevent people from going up to Second and making that sort of challenging turn there. And then San Mateo itself does widen as well. You probably noticed some work going on at Melody Toyota on that corner. That's
Right.
part of what that is. We're actually taking a small crescent-shaped space. One of the few takes on this project was to take a little piece of Melody's property there. The sidewalk will come back in, and that will make a wider turn out of San Mateo. And what that does is it allows us to get an extra lane at San Mateo. So San Mateo does widen and San Bruno does widen, correct?
Okay. And then the other day I noticed traveling southbound and trying to make a left on San Bruno Avenue that we were unable to do that. Is that going to be a problem throughout the project, or
I'm sorry, you were southbound on,
if you were coming from South San Francisco,
okay.
heading south and making a left
So
on
you're,
San
so you're
Bruno
on San
Avenue?
Mateo making a left on San Bruno?
Yeah, they were not allowing left turns.
Okay, so there was a temporary condition. They were taking a lane, as you know, up on that corner.
Right.
So that work that's going on over there, there's some utility relocations, and we've got approximately a week and a half more at that intersection before that should clean up a little bit. It's not the last work you're going to see there, obviously, because eventually we got to lower everything down. But as far as the utility, which is really the main stuff you guys are probably seeing right now at San Bruno, that should be finished here pretty shortly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
Okay, so I have a couple things that I want to ask. So the first is what seems like a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. That with the budget issues that were going on with CalTrain, that this station was one of the stations that was slated to be closed. So I know this is obviously quite an expense to make these changes. So in light of that, then does that mean that then our station here is going to be safe even if the budget for CalTrain doesn't improve?
Okay, so let me just maybe clarify a couple of things. One, there's money for building stuff, and that money is kind of relatively easy to get versus the money it takes to run stuff, okay? So building stuff, which they call capital funds, and then operating funds to run the service. We have the capital funds to build the grade separation, and like I said, it's important to us. We have had some operating budget challenges precipitated by several different factors: state funding, tax decrease, what else? The economic downturn. There are a lot of different things. And for those who may not know, CalTrain is operated by a partnership between the City and County of San Francisco, the San Mateo County Transit District, and the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority. And so all three of those partners have to have the money to be able to put in to operate the trains. We get about 44% of our operating funds directly from our passengers, what we call fare box recovery ratio. And then we have some other funds that do come from either the state or feds that can be put into there. During the discussions about our budget, we had to sort of lay everything on the table for sort of what you call sort of full public disclosure, right? So we had to have hearings about whatever the possibilities may be because of the money we actually had in hand. Our executive directors of the various partner agencies, as well as MTC, came together and were able to find the funding to plug the gaps and hold on to our current schedule. We know that, or we believe that, we will be able to do the same for 2013, for fiscal year 2013, which begins July of 2012. So we're in fiscal year 2012 now. We do not have an agreement yet, but we are working feverishly on one to preserve the schedule that we have today. We know that going further into the future, in order for CalTrain to be sustainable long-term financially from an operating perspective, that we will probably have to go for some sort of ballot measure to provide additional tax funding. Now, we don't know what that will look like at this time, but we believe that that may be one of the ways to help. And also long-term, though it takes a while to construct new projects, that's one reason why electrification is so important to us, because it provides us an opportunity to provide more service at our stations than we can provide today, thereby increasing our ridership and therefore the revenue while holding our operating costs steady. So we hope not to re-enter a situation like we had this year, where we had to sort of say, here are the possible outcomes. We're not proposing to close the station, but here are the possible outcomes given the money that we had at that moment in time. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. So I have an easier question for you. The single track you
Yes.
said is possibly happens on the weekend. So how long is that due to happen?
It depends on what work is going on and where that work is happening. And so typically it may happen, say, for the whole weekend. You may have a single track condition, but it really just depends. A lot of times they're sort of late at night, but there may be throughout the weekend. You want to say?
Oh, yeah, just as to the weekends, we're actually done the bulk of the single tracking for the project. So we've got one more single tracking in this kind of group. And then the next major impact will be when we do the street closure itself. So you'll still see probably a little bit at night, but as to like a whole weekend, we've done the bulk of those already.
Okay. And just one last question out of
Yes.
curiosity, what would be done with the land after the station is moved? Currently where the train station is, what will happen to that?
Is that part of the rebuild of Posey?
No, we haven't decided that. I mean, we're actually still in discussions about that. I mean, obviously, as to who, the city reminds me that the city is part of the discussion. So yeah, no, we're discussing with the city what the final would look like. Obviously, if we don't need it as a station, we'd find something else to use with that land.
What is the height of this development with the train above the tracks like that? And the reason I'm asking is we have low-flying airplanes, and that has to be considered. I mean, the takeoffs are low. So do you know what the total?
So the total height, I mean, depends where you measure from, obviously, but roughly speaking, if you're on Huntington, the platform height will be about 16 and a half feet above Huntington. And to answer your question, yes, obviously we did check with the FAA and how they do it is the runway has sort of a hypothetical 3D area where you can't build anything. And then you've got a secondary area where anything you build has to have a red light, but you can still build it as long as you register. So what we did is we registered the tallest thing on the project, which is actually not going to be the structure, it's going to be an antenna up by South Linden, which we registered with the FAA and we're in full compliance on that. So
I know it's a temptation for the city to do more construction, and then they'll be higher. Being that the train is going by, they'll think, then they can jump out of the bed and jump on the train.
thank you.
Sorry, I had one more question. You had a project going on north of 380 where you replaced the tracks up there and you leveled everything out. Are you going to landscape that or put a fence in or anything, or do you know when it's going to be done? Or
So just so I'm clear, are you talking about at the station itself? Are you talking
north of 380 where the railroad tracks are coming through? Between by Scott Street. They've been up there working for a while.
Oh, correct.
Ripped
Okay,
all
yes.
that out, and
That's
it's not
correct.
done. Can you
So-
tell me if they're going to landscape that now, or are they going to finish that up, or?
Yeah, so that's actually part of this project. We're actually
Right,
shifting
that's what
over
I'm asking.
track as part of that. So yes, to answer your question, we're not done, obviously. So we will have to go out there and we'll hydroseed that area, and then which is planting, and then we'll finish up some of the civil work you see there. So some of the crossings, guardrail, things like that will have to be finished. So you're seeing a work in progress right now.
And the street has got a lot of potholes in it. Are they going to be responsible for any of that repaving?
On South Linden?
On the street that runs, Herman, it runs right alongside where you're doing all the work and your trucks are all working along?
Well, if we caused them, absolutely.
Okay.
If the pothole wasn't there, we'll be happy to fix it.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
Well,
thank you. We do appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. Again, if you have follow-up questions, you've got us, various ways to reach us, and you've got the city also, who's happy to take your concerns. Thank you again. Again, I'm Todd McIntyre.